Cabin 13 Productions.
I had someone call me gay on the last Instagram post, guys.
So funny. Didn't you get hit by a car?
Yeah, but I didn't die. I mean, either that or like you're on the brink of death from like not being able to breathe or something.
My sleep apnea.
Your sleep apnea might have like hit you. And
What?
yeah, no.
Are you jamming in your gums?
Yeah,
oh, you're
dude.
bleeding. You don't floss enough.
Yeah, Doc, you stabbed my gums.
I'm such a loser, sweating God, I'm the worst.
As the Halloween season approaches, our contemplation of death becomes more frequent. We begin to ponder questions such as, who are we? How will we meet our end? What comes next? And is there an afterlife? Or does life simply cease after death? Dr. Raymond Moody, the author of Life After Life, delved into these same questions when conversing with individuals who claim to have returned to the realm of the living after being declared dead by medical professionals. This exploration led him to coin the term the near-death experience and to delve into its significance. What exactly is it? Who undergoes such an experience? And could this research substantiate the existence of an afterlife? Discover more on this week's episode of the Woodsmen Podcast. Welcome back to the Woodsmen Podcast. We're your hosts, Brent Murphy.
And Joey Rucker.
And guys, welcome back to Season 3.
I thought you were going to be like, and welcome back
to the Woodsmen Podcast. Nah,
Season
guys.
3, baby.
Season 3, baby.
And as you can tell, we're celebrating Christmas on this episode.
Christmas?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No,
So, you know, spooky season is upon us. So we had to bust out all the decorations for my favorite holiday of the year, guys. So
Is it like, in fact, your favorite?
100% my
100%.
favorite holiday. And
feel that.
I'm freaking working on it this year. So,
Dang.
yeah, I want to kill myself.
So
but
sorry.
Don't worry, guys. I'm going to be Mothman this year.
You already kind of look like Mothman, right?
I hope so. You guys couldn't notice, we're wearing some freshed up alien sunglasses.
Yeah.
So. Nah, man, dude, it's season 2 is a blast.
I had fun. I'm really proud of what we got done.
We went through a lot of stages. We went through a lot of stages just within the beginning of season 1 to 2. And then like now going into 3, I feel like this is going to be the first season we're finally like settled. We're set. We're ready. We're in the same space, doing better. Like we literally just had a mini meeting before we recorded about just how we're going to make this pod better. So
well, one thing that was
excited.
like super not cool to me was like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, season 2 like was the first time where the Woodsman Podcast finally actually felt like a show.
Yes.
Like it actually kind of felt like a production, whereas we've done so many different kinds of setups and spaces and audio equipment and video equipment, and it's been a nightmare chat.
It really has,
but
man.
This
Just getting
last season,
cables together.
man, it felt like we were actually doing our own show, which like was a big accomplishment on my side.
No, dude, it's been really good. It's been, I will say it's been a struggle, just mentally, honestly. Like, I don't know for chat, and I don't even know for Joey. I don't think we really talked about it, but like mentally getting prepared to come out to somewhere every single weekend. You're giving up your whole weekend period. I mean, we've given up our whole free lives, like our free time. Like,
it's the whole week.
like-
It's not just the weekends. I
No,
mean, we have Eric editing audio in the beginning of the weekend. We have me editing the video post-production throughout the week.
And while we're doing that, I'm
You
out
have
here writing an outline.
You have all the
I'm-
writing of the outline. You're doing socials all week long now. Like those have been
Yeah.
coming out a lot more.
Heck yeah, guys.
They
4
look
posts
good.
this week. Yurt.
What's up, Instagram?
What's up? Make sure you follow us at the Woodsmen Pod. Woodsmen Pod.
Woodsman Pod.
There we go. But no, it's a lot, man. It honestly, I've definitely felt the effects of like not hanging out with friends like throughout the week anymore. Like it's like, hey guys, I'm at my second job that I don't get paid for. So it's been a struggle, but honestly it's been very rewarding when like you can look back at a season, especially like now that we're in the 3rd season. Like you can look back at a whole season and you're like, oh my god, like 11 episodes.
A lot of season 1 felt it didn't feel like as much of a show because the first 5 episodes were pre-recorded back when we did it in your garage, and we didn't have a flow going. And then when we started school, and then when we started doing the flow of like weekly, then we were like, something always broke and something was always going wrong, and we kept having to move spaces, and it was a nightmare season 1. And
it was a lot. It was a lot mentally to just sit down and like, especially for anyone who. Again, I feel like we have to reiterate a lot because now we're getting like up there. We're almost in our 30th episode. Mm-hmm. So it's like we actually have to like mention some things in case no one has like listened back to any previous episodes. Yeah. When we first started this podcast, we had 9 episodes recorded and done, and then my laptop got stolen.
Yeah.
And then we lost all of it. Like we lost every single episode. And it was heartbreaking. Like I think back of it still to
I'm pretty
this
sure
day.
Both of us contemplated like
maybe we should give up.
Maybe this is like a couple of a months type of podcast, like not a like legitimate every week kind of thing.
Yeah, like
if keeping it at all, you
like
know?
Once or twice a month, and then like that's it. But and just meeting up weekly. I mean, a lot of podcasts they record remote. They. Like, hey, yo, let's get on Zoom or let's get on Riverside. Let's get on, like any of these platforms you can record a podcast on, and then they just record it over that if it's going to be live. I don't know about you,
but having a space like this now, I feel like I'm obligated to come in now.
I feel like we have to now.
Eric gave us such a nice space here, the painted walls. Now we got all of our...
Shout out to Elite Sound Studios,
Heck
bro.
yeah,
if you want to record in a cool-ass space like this, for sure hit us up on our Gmail.
Yeah.
At thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com. But like, no, it's just it's very rewarding, and it's very rewarding when we look back at last week's episode, Hold On, Let 'Em Cook.
Yeah.
And we've tripled our viewers in just one episode.
Technically it was 2 weeks ago for chat, but
yeah, you're right.
Last week for us.
Yeah, you're right. Because Flat Earth Theory just came out.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We release, for anyone who doesn't know our schedule, we release the pod the same day we record the next week's episode. Yeah. So
that's kind of on me. I'm gonna try and start getting it out by like Fridays in the future.
Nah, you're good, bro. It's hard.
We promised you weekends, chat. Not Fridays.
We promised weekends. We didn't promise an actual day. So no, but it
did very well.
It did very well, like compared to everything else. And people will look back on it, they'll be like, oh, that's not that many viewers. But like
for us,
yeah,
it's a big deal.
It went well. It went well because we dropped down on viewership due to one episode. And we're not going to mention the episode, but like, one episode kind of like dropped the viewership. But after that, we were a little discouraged. I know I was a little discouraged. We had a meeting about how discouraging it was. But this last episode has given us a little bit of hope. Sorry, the episode before last has given us a little bit of hope that, like we still got people listening. We still got people who are down. So all those new viewers, thank you guys. That episode was really fun to record too. Like that was pretty funny. It was a pretty funny episode. If you guys haven't seen the Instagram, we got some pretty funny clips, just saying. But
we have, housekeeping. Speaking of, we got, I don't know if you would consider it a hate comment, but like.
The one on Instagram?
Yeah, we got like an official, like kind of.
I had someone call me gay on the last Instagram post, guys.
It was so funny because it was the clip where Brent was talking about how he like loves to have nuts in his chocolate.
Loves to have nut.
Loves to have nut. No, he loves to have nuts in his chocolate, and then he does like that laugh. And The guy in the comments was like, I bet you like having nuts in your mouth, don't you, gay boy?
You gay boy, yeah, dude. And I mean, honestly, it was pretty funny. The thing I was more mad about was bro didn't even drop a like.
Yeah, I know, dude.
He just commented.
Hey, but think about it this way. He may have not been able to drop a like, but he gave us a view.
He gave us a view.
Can't hide from that.
That's all
I wish
that
I knew
matters.
his name right
Loser?
now.
No.
I think it's like one. Nah, I shouldn't out him. Never mind.
Yeah. We can't out people.
Can't
we
be
can't out
outing
people.
people.
But I mean, hey, if you're listening to this right now, good one.
Thanks for the view.
That was a good one.
We appreciate
That was a good
the viewership.
But honestly, we don't have much housekeeping besides us rambling on for however long we've rambled on right now.
Season 3 is in full effect, and we're in the spoopy season.
Hell yeah! So this next week or this next month, you guys are gonna have to listen to me talk a lot because I'm taking over this month, and we're gonna have some pretty fun things planned. We got almost the whole rest of the year planned. But this month in particular, banger, guys. It's going to be a banger. So I'm excited. I'm excited to dive into this topic, which is one of my favorite, like, not spooky topics, but like, if anyone is at all spiritual or like religious or like questioning like what happens when you die, this is a banger, like I will say. This one is definitely a banger. So why don't we go and dive in to what we call the near-death experience?
It all started when I was 5.
And we're back. So, first of all, like we always do, how's your week been?
It's been, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't bad, but man, I lost out on sleep this week.
Yeah.
This was a terrible week for sleep. I think yesterday was the first time I caught up on it, and I accidentally slept till like 4. And I was like, dude, apparently my body has shut down because I was draining it dry.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's normally what happens when you run off of like no sleep whatsoever.
And then go to work, and then no sleep, and then go to work.
And then edit, and then
and edit.
And then sleep for 2 hours.
But no, I mean, as a week goes though, it wasn't bad. It was an okay week.
That's good, bro. I mean, I wish my weeks didn't start at the end of the week so that I had to sit there and slave away during the weekend.
Yeah.
And, like, struggle to get everything done. Because that's the thing, chat. Like, our schedules are so vastly different. It is actually ridiculous how, as 3 people running this podcast, like, I don't understand how we're able to do it because Eric's chilling at the beginning of the week. I'm chilling at the beginning of the week. Joey's slaving away at work. And then once Joey's done, then I'm slaving away at the podcast. And then when I'm halfway through it, then I'm slaving away at work. And then it's like, our schedules are just wild. I mean, like I worked like such a terrible turnaround like this weekend. It was like it was ungodly, bro. Like I wanted to throw up, like to be honest.
That's how Chad knows we're dedicated.
That's right. But it left us maybe on the verge of death.
Pretty close, if you ask me.
That's where the near-death experience comes in. Am I right?
Yeah.
So,
if you haven't guessed,
we're
talking about the near-death experience.
Nah, chat. This is like I said in housekeeping. This is probably this is my favorite holiday of the year, Halloween. There's so much that goes into it. There's so many festivities. There's so much meaning behind it, not just culturally, but spiritually, and just, you don't have to be a part of any religion or a part of any culture to appreciate just the meaning really behind Halloween, which is simply just taking time to remember your ancestors, taking the time to just remember those that were close to you in life. Maybe you weren't close to them, but family members and people who your family were close to. It's just a remembrance, honestly. I don't think a lot of people really, understand that part. And again, a lot of that has to do, unfortunately, with death. It has a lot to do with, those who have fallen before us and keeping their memories alive. I love Coco. I feel like that's a pretty great like movie.
Coco's a good movie for
like
that.
I feel
that
like
kinda
it's
vibe.
such a good like representation of like being able to.
Would you consider Coco a fall Halloweeny movie?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's like an everyday movie, to be honest. But I think it's one of those like if I'm gonna watch it any day of the year, I'm definitely gonna watch it in between October for
Yeah.
sure. You know, no, it's just one of those good movies where it's really just about family and it's about love and it's just about like learning how to appreciate like where you came from, even if you don't know exactly like where you came from. So I think it's just yeah, it's a solid movie, bro. 10 out of
Yeah.
10 for sure. And you know, there's a lot of music in it. And, you know, as a music guy and an audio guy, I know Eric can attest to this. Like, yeah, dude, it's
Coco's a good one for that.
It's a good one. It's a good one. But you know, Chad.
So, how does that relate to then the
Yeah.
near death experience?
So I feel like it kind of relates a lot. I feel like there's a lot of maybe not physically in the movie, but I think there's a lot of alluding to like the life review. There's a lot of like reviewing your past self, reviewing like the things you've done in your life, reviewing you know, majority of it is reviewing your mistakes and learning from them and wanting to do better. So I would say that probably has to do with a lot of it. You know, you kind of put me on the spot with that one. I haven't watched Coco in a while. So.
Well, and not just Coco, but I just mean like the idea of looking back on your life. Because I think, I mean, I can't, I don't know for all of chat, but I know for at least me, not knowing a lot about the near death experience. When I think of it, I think of kind of your life just flashing before your eyes right before you die.
Yeah,
And that's like the only way I think of it. So when you kind of look back on life instead, I don't often think of that correlating with
so there's a lot that has to do with the near-death experience. I mean, that's a part of it. Like, I feel like the life review is definitely a part of it. But there's so much more, like, depth and, like, detail that goes into that, which, like, because you don't know a lot about it, I am very excited to like drop some of this knowledge on you for sure because it's crazy. It's crazy. So diving in on Wikipedia, obviously the source for all.
Brent's favorite news source.
It is my favorite. Hey, bro, it's my favorite source for sources. You know, because you got to cite your sources.
You're right. Because your favorite news source is the bare facts, right?
Exactly. That's the only place I get my actual like real world news. So period. I don't need to know anything else besides it's on the bare facts. So, you know, did he? Don't worry, guys. That's a little allusion to what the bare facts segment is going to be about.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, refraining from Diddy Combs, we're gonna get into what like an NDE is. So I'm gonna refer to a near-death experience most of the time to an NDE because I feel like.
Go on. For those
Joey's
of you who
antennas fell off.
Antennas fell off.
Yeah, for anyone. Oh yeah, dude. For anyone who's not watching this, by the way.
Oh yeah. For our audio
our
listeners.
studio is totally decked out in Halloween decorations, and part of that is us wearing alien goggles.
Yeah.
And Joey's wearing some great alien antennas. So for anyone who heard that's all right. Maybe you need to stop. Maybe you need to actually stop.
Sorry, chat.
Joey's messing with his antennas and is really f***ing things up. But
sorry, Dad.
So, anyways, the NDE. Right?
ND.
I'm gonna go through a little bit
NDE,
of
right?
Yeah, NDE, near death experience. So, going into it, you got from Wiki as a source. An NDE is a profound personal experience associated with death and or impending death, which researchers describe as having similar characteristics. When positive, which the great majority of NDEs are, surprisingly, which is interesting, especially for going from like a faith sort of perspective, there's either heaven or hell. You know, there's either the good or the bad. But majority of cases that involve like near-death experiences or NDEs, most of them result in positive like experiences,
like a positive outtake on it.
Yeah. So like most of the cases are a very profound sense of love and like acceptance and all that kind of stuff. But we'll dive deeper into that later. So such experiences may encompass a variety of sensations, including detachment from the body, feelings of levitation, total serenity, security, warmth, joy, the experience of absolute disillusion, review of major life events, which is, you know, a life review, as we were talking about with Coco, the presence of a light, and seeing dead relatives, which is interesting. So like there's a lot that goes into that, which is very fascinating, honestly. But there are a little bit of negatives. So when it's a negative experience, such experiences may include sensations of anguish, distress, a void, which is very odd, or maybe not odd, but just strange in general, like just a void of like nothingness, which is a little bit scary like if you think about it.
Tank.
Yeah, literally a deprivation tank. Devastation, and seeing like hellish imagery in general.
My God.
So there's a lot that goes into an NDE, but as you could see just from that, a lot of experiences are pretty positive.
And have you ever had one?
Oh heck no, dude! I don't think I've
ever had something like this. Like,
yeah, I've never had. I don't think I've ever been
or a
close
void
to,
or a hellish landscape. Like I've never had anything like that before.
Well, I don't think I've ever been in a position where I've been either on the brink of death or like dying.
Didn't you get hit by a car?
Yeah, but I didn't die. I mean,
you said on the brink. If he would have been going 10 miles per hour more.
I mean, maybe, but like that's different. That's different, you know.
Would have been crippled, dog, not dead.
I would have literally been a paraplegic. That doesn't equate to death. Come on, bro. Well, like you'll find like later. You'll find.
you
I gotta jump in there.
You broke.
I'm just saying, if you were a paraplegic, I'd put you on strings, so I'd have to control your hands.
Yeah, it's like a marionette.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's what you thought of?
That's what I thought of.
The first thing this guy thinks of
I
is,
got you, bro. Like, you're
you-
still alive.
if you lose out on your hands, then it's just...
Like, what happened, guys?
I don't know. I'm just the man behind the screens.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you'll end up like seeing that a lot of people who've had these experiences have been people who are honestly like pretty much pronounced dead by like medical professionals, like people where it's like,
Oh, okay.
dog has been like quote unquote dead for 30 minutes type of thing, and it's like they're not coming back. Like they're not coming back, but somehow like they have this profound experience, and then they end up like coming back out of it just randomly, which is like crazy in itself. But then to like know they're coming back with a story to tell, which is actually like pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have something on the serious note. When you were talking about the positive aspect and the negative aspect, two things come to mind. Does any information show like if the person was religious?
Yes, so we're actually gonna touch on that. So
Perfect.
It's interesting. I guess I'll get to that point now because I do know it off the top of my head. For anyone who doesn't know, chat, I got my notes in front of me. But a lot of experiences do not dictate whether you're, say, a Christian or Jewish or Muslim or an atheist. I mean, there are like atheists who have had near-death experiences that have then come out of it like, oh, maybe there is something after
Death.
life, you know, like life after death type of thing, which is insane when you think about like the implications of what that means, because then, you know, you have people who have no faith in anything whatsoever that are coming back with like a profound experience where they're like, oh, I can't question what just happened, you know? So that is very interesting. I actually have some percentages as well, but we'll get into those a little bit later. So this all started, not studied. What a laugh. But a 1975 study conducted by psychiatrist Raymond Moody was around 150 patients. So like bro like kind of like interviewed like 150 people who all claimed they have witnessed an NDE and stated that such an experience sort of has around 9 steps to it. Like, so there
9.
So there are 9 steps that most people who have an NDE seem to most of the time
Step 1, pronounced dead.
That's one of them for sure. But we're gonna move a little bit into who Raymond Moody is before I go over those steps. So Raymond Moody wrote a book called Life After Life that was published in 1995, so relatively like recent. Me and Joey, we definitely weren't born in 1995. They got 5 years up on us. But Eric, you were alive by 95. So
I was 5 years old, but yeah.
You were 5. Yeah. So I mean you were
yeah,
there.
It's like
you
when
were
people
in the
say,
time.
"Oh, you were alive during 9/11. How did that impact you?" And I'm like I was like 1.
I was going goo goo gaga. That's what I was doing. I
was 11, and I was actually, the crazy thing is I was at school when I first heard it on the radio.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I wonder how many near-death experiences like would be. I mean, obviously, I'm not like denying that there was tragedy and real death, but I wonder how many people maybe who were affected by it started having potential near-death experiences and stuff like that.
That would be very interesting. I would have loved
or just
to
tragedies in general, not just
dive in.
9/11, but like when there is like a tragedy in the world, like I wonder how that affects people's minds. And that correlates to more often having near-death
especially
experiences.
if like you're like really close to it, you know, like anyone who was in the World Trade Center, whether or not they lived or like died in such an event like that. I can only imagine like what it'd be like just being on, say, the 5th floor of the building, and then you hear some crazy you know, stuff going on, you hear explosions, all this kind of stuff. Like there's got to be someone who had just had something crazy happen, because there are more than just near-death experiences.
Something unexplainable.
There's shared death experiences where people who have been around people who are on the brink of death, like say they're like on the hospital bed, they flatline, something like that. Sometimes people share the same experience as the person who is having the experience.
Really?
And they're not in any peril whatsoever.
Wow.
You know, there's also a lot of stuff where, you know, people who are almost in a car accident where, like, say someone, like, runs a red light right in front of you, you're still barreling through a green, boom, they'll have this crazy, you know, full life review type of thing. They'll have, like, all this crazy stuff happen, and then they come back, and they didn't get hit. Like, they weren't in any danger. Like, they didn't, you know, nothing happened to them. But something, like, triggered that. So then you got to ask yourself, like, maybe your soul, possibly, like, is almost like hitting the eject button.
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, shoot, it's about to go down. And it, like, you know, jumps out or something. Oof. And then it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm good. And it, like, you know, maybe falls back down or something. Like,
should I be concerned? Because I would call it a near-death experience.
Really?
I was coming home back from church. It was raining. We were coming over Shannon Hills.
Yeah.
And our car started swerving. When it happened, everything slowed down for me. I wasn't seeing my life flash before my eyes. Think like Flash, you know, when he's running, everything just stands still. That's what happened to me. And then even when my car flipped to the driver's side, which I was driving, everything was still slow. I saw, like, when there's junk, like pens or whatever, I saw stuff falling slowly in front of me while everything was going down.
So that's That's interesting because I actually read, like, while I was doing research for this, I listened to a couple podcasts about it. I read some, didn't read whole books because I didn't have time, but I read a lot of excerpts from books and like Life After Life, all that kind of stuff. And there's a case of someone who was, and I believe it was on Astonishing Legends, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was one of their listeners had wrote in when they were doing, they had an episode on a near-death experience. And one of the listeners actually wrote in, and he was in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, one of the people in his platoon got shot. And him and a buddy were going over to try and get him out of there, line of fire, all this kind of stuff. And he said that everything for him slowed down. It was like 5 seconds, felt like it was like an hour type of thing. And then he actually heard his friend that was in the platoon. He, like, the friend unfortunately passed. But he heard him in, like, his head, I guess, like a disembodied voice, and was like, "Don't worry about me, like I'm okay, and you're gonna get hit by a bullet, but it's gonna hit your plate. You're gonna be fine, so don't worry about it.
Wow.
But, like, get my body out of here, all this kind of stuff. Like, you're gonna be fine, but you need to move," type of thing. And he described that exact thing that you're saying, Eric, where it's a very, like, everything slows down, time slows down. And I feel like it's interesting because when there's a lot of turmoil happening, a lot of cases that I, had researched for this, a lot of the times a lot of people had said, like, the veil is extremely thin. When there are times of distress, when there's a lot of emotional turmoil, when there's a lot of things going on, things kind of, the lines almost blur. There's a lot of things that kind of coincide with each other. And, I think part of that might be the slowing down of time, especially when you think about, like, time is a man-made construct, like, we made time to help us get through life, And it's like, I think maybe when there are times of emotional distress and times where there are, like, weird things happening, that maybe that time, that relativity slows down. It kind of, you get this weird awareness of things. It's almost the same thing as, like, you hear, like, you hear moms, where their babies are like, trapped in her car or something like that, and they lift the car.
Yeah.
It's like stuff like that where it's just, like, very weird, like, what? Like, that would never happen in real life, but it's like you have these people where it's like, I saved my child and I don't know how I did it, but it was just one of those things,
They say it's the adrenaline, though.
Yeah.
That basically puts their muscles into overdrive.
I'd love to do
and
an
allows
episode
them
on
to be able to
adrenaline.
do such feats like that.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. Like your body is just an incredible tool.
A weird, like, similar thing I've had, but it's kind of different because, and I don't know if it's credible then because of the difference. So I've had almost a very similar moment to, like, the time slowing down thing, but I've had it in dreams when I've died. Now, I've heard the statistic, and I don't know how true it is, but I sort of agree with it, that you never actually see yourself, like, take your last breath in a dream.
Yeah, because your body doesn't know how to, like, recreate that because you never, like, been through it.
But I've had at least, like, 3 dreams that I can remember off the top of my head where I've been shot. And though I haven't been shot before, it's one of the weirdest emotional feelings I've had while dreaming before, because it is the most, what I guess my brain could consider accurate feeling to being shot. And when it happens, especially, like, there have been 2 dreams I can think of where it was the most, like, I don't know if this is real or not. Like, I don't know if I'm actually, like, if I should be saying my goodbyes now. But in that moment, I've had a weird sense of, like, time slows down and I have, like, seemingly hours to basically go back, collect my thoughts, think about Is this it? What good things have I done in life? What should I be ashamed or proud of? And that's why I don't know if it's as credible, because clearly my car didn't flip, so that's that's different. I was like in dreamland, but like there have been 2 dreams I can specifically think of where I have been so ready to die because it felt so ungodly real. To the point where, you know, like it was that thing where once the bullet hit me, I was sitting there and I was like, wow, this is
real pain.
This is real.
This is
like
it.
I'm hurting and I am having to kind of say my farewells to myself and my soul and my body and my mind. And then, well, you know, then I wake up for breakfast, but but like it's weird. Like I don't know if that also, like if you could have near-death experiences in dreams. I don't know if you had any statistics on that or not, but
Well, no, I don't think I have anything like dream related statistics, because a lot of these stories that I've found have been like people who have like either just been going through something where like this happens, or like I think there might be a coma story that I also have like in here where someone like came out from like a coma. Now, a lot of these stories have actually derived from being under anesthetic or like going into surgery and stuff like that, where they have like flatline, like something goes wrong, like during a surgery, they're trying to get resuscitated, all that kind of stuff. But it happens in literally any form or fashion of like your life being threatened. So it is very like interesting. But I mean, it sounds like you had like a little life review just in a dream, which is pretty interesting.
it's the reason I only bring it up is because it's the only time, even though it's in a dream, it's the only time that I've actually sat there and had to like look back at my entire life and think about it, because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this could be the last time I can think about it.
Yeah.
I would agree with Brent on that one, because if you think about it, it's all happening in the mind.
Yeah.
So just because it happened for me in real life, like an event, who's to say it's not the same effect in your dream? Because it's all stemmed in the same.
It's all
same place.
psychological.
Yeah.
Either that or like you're on the brink of death from like
In your
not
sleep.
being able to breathe or something.
My
Like,
sleep apnea.
your sleep apnea might have like hit you. And just,
What he didn't realize, he was laying face down in his pillow.
and just was dying.
What he
Was
didn't
literally
realize is he had been
dying.
laying on his arm for so long that the blood circulation stopped.
Bro almost had to cut his own arm off, dog.
Joey's like, wake up, wake up.
Like, what are you doing, please?
Dog, you're not breathing.
No oxygen.
So getting
Yeah.
through,
Get back on track.
Getting through this little section, especially with Raymond Moody. So some facts about my man over here. He was actually the one to coin the term near-death experience. So the near-death experience itself, like an NDE being referenced, has only been around like circa 95. So it hasn't really been around like too long, but there are like historical accounts, like all the way dating back, I think, to I believe like the 15th century, where people have described like people being on the brink of death and like them coming back and having stories of like, you know, crazy things happening in their life, which is very odd. So Moody ended up becoming very invested and interested in this phenomena when he was talking to a doctor who actually had his own near-death experience, which is interesting because then you have someone who is a doctor who takes a physiological, like biological, like approach to things, or it's like, I'm a doctor. So it's like, the fact that like a doctor has something happening, you know, it's very interesting.
Everything has an answer.
As to someone having such a profound experience enough to get someone else to want to research and review something like this. So after he believed, or after he listened to this doctor talking about his belief in his near-death experience, Moody decided to collect data from testimonies of people, which we'll see in the notes below, who basically believe that there are many different stages of a near-death experience, and there happens to be around 9. So it happens to be around 9 stages.
Let's talk about them.
Hell yeah,
List
dude.
them off for me, buddy.
So some common traits that have been reported in NDEs are, 1, a sense of awareness of being dead, which is like very scary when you think about it.
See, that's almost how I would describe the dream thing.
Like
'cause
you're
that's,
aware.
I was almost afraid that I had died, and this was like my subconscious just giving me an answer of how it happened. Like it was a weird like sensation in my head, like where I was like, oh man, is this
Yeah.
just me, my body telling me that it happened?
And you pretty much accepted it too. You're like,
Yeah.
well, this is it.
Well, that's okay. So that's interesting because the second point is there's a sense of peace, well-being, and painlessness and other positive emotions about it, and a sense of removal from the world, which is very...
That seems more like what I had, because I
But
wouldn't
you
say
said
I
you
had...
felt pain though.
I felt pain. Okay, so when I
Some
felt it,
sort of
I
pain.
felt what my brain could tell me felt like a bullet being punctured. So I felt
Yeah.
a really hard like pinch, and that was really painful right at first. But then when it says like a removal from the world,
Yeah.
that to me is what I felt like a lot, because after the hit and when I actually started contemplating if it was over, what I felt like was that I was laying on a ground and like I was surrounded by just grayness everywhere, and it was just me in the world, and that was like I was the only one left.
So that's so crazy.
And-
So like, well, you just said actually a key word that like continues out of that point,
Okay.
which is acceptance. And a lot of people, on top of like that sense of removal from the world, they also experience an intense feeling of unconditional love and acceptance, and experiencing euphoric environments. So
I wouldn't call it euphoric what I had, but it
well,
was
that's what I mean. Like, you know,
yeah.
like the near-death experience is so
But it's also
like
yeah, it's
broad, you know.
different,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of things that go into that. But like you saying, like in acceptance, like, you know, you accepted the fact that like this is like happening, you know, to you, and then it's like, well, I can't control it. It's just something that's like going on like right
Yeah.
now. So we go into the next point, which is an out-of-body experience, which is also referred to as an OBE.
Also pronounced as an ob.
As an OB. But when you think of out-of-body experiences, what do you think of?
I think of that the scene in No Way Home where Doctor Strange like
yes,
hit Peter
yes.
out of his body, and
So astral projection,
that's kind of how I view
which
the
is
idea
also
of
a
it,
very
the vibe of it.
well-known thing that some people claim to be able to do,
On
Like
command,
on command.
when they're trained, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's also very interesting.
It was actually a military experiment.
Yes, there's a lot of
Really?
astral projection type of stuff, remote viewing.
It's like spying.
left,
Part of the
right,
spying
left.
ops, you know, getting into places that a physical body couldn't.
yeah.
Interesting.
And that's like part of like where remote viewing comes in and all that kind of stuff too, because it's like relying on the mystical rather than like the physical, which is very
Interesting.
very wild. But for anyone who doesn't know what like an OBE is, it's a perception of one's body from outside of their physical body, essentially. Sometimes observing medical professionals performing resuscitation or like anything having to do with surgeries, all that kind of stuff, which again, once we get into our stories segment, there's going to be a lot of stories where that comes up, which is like scary in itself, because imagine like looking down like on your body, like getting like cut open and all that kind
So
of
it
stuff.
seems
like,
pretty consistent,
Right?
Like evidence.
Yeah.
like it's not just coincidence of one or two.
Exactly. And trust me, once we get through these, you're going to see how many people just in the US have claimed to have near-death experiences. It will actually shock you, like how many people have claimed to have like real near-death experiences. So going into the next point, we have a tunnel experience or entering a darkness. So it's a sense of moving up or through a passageway or a staircase. So a lot of people have experienced once
Doesn't
they...
sound like me. I can't see myself dying and using the stairs.
That's facts.
You just got gray. It's a void.
You just got a void, dude. You didn't have to worry about nothing. But yeah, so a lot of people experience like going into like a tunnel effect. They go through like a dark space heading toward light. And once they get to the light, I would assume it's probably the full death. I mean, at least to me. You have a rapid movement toward or a sudden immersion in a powerful light. There we go. So that coincides right there. Or beings of light.
See, that's interesting to me.
Or beings dressed in white who communicate telepathically with the person.
Do you know where this immediately brings me?
Where?
Do you remember on our alien episode when we talked about the guy that I think I brought up, but also it came up in a lot of our alien stories, where the guy had seen the balls of light in the air, and then
Orfeo Angelucci,
and they would like come up and they would speak telepathically to you.
Yes, and interesting for anyone who grew up in the church. What do all the angels and stuff say to you? Lo, do not be afraid. There are a lot of alien contactee stories, especially from around the 50s and 60s. I believe the abduction like accounts really come in like towards like the 80s, but 50s, 60s, and 70s, like anyone who was having a contactee experience, one of the first things that was ever said to them was, "Do not be afraid, we're friends."
Mm-hmm.
And
or we come in peace.
Or we come in peace. Like a lot of like majority of the stories, the people claim like their mouths weren't moving, but I was hearing them perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, or they were speaking in a language I've never heard before, but I could understand it all, you know, which is very,
very weird.
Very weird.
But interesting food for thought,
but hey, everything is connected. Am I right? You know, there's a lot of commonalities between like, you know, the fringy and the things that have been like scientifically studied.
There's a baseline.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like a commonality between all of it, which is wild. So being reunited with deceased loved ones, which I feel like I guess would be like a common trope that most people would assume like once they were dying that they would experience, you know. Receiving a life review, commonly referred to as seeing one's life flash before one's eyes. There are a lot of stories where they talk about sometimes it's a linear life review, where it's almost like oh my gosh, when I actually researched this, the first thing I thought of was the TVA in Loki.
Why?
Like the looking at a TV, seeing everything past, present, future happening in your life, what could have been, what could be.
See, that's never how I viewed it. I always viewed it as like, what if this is us living
our
life review right now? Like, what if we died and this is just the replay?
That's wild.
Makes sense because we're all dying.
We are all dying. So I mean,
it's kind of a weird, twisted way I've always seen it.
So I mean, the life review is interesting. That's probably like one of the most like I think interesting like topics of like a near-death experience.
The worst part about that is like for your personal opinion, it's like I didn't live a good life at all. This sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm dying.
And again, there are accounts of like people seeing it and like not being overwhelmed because they're I guess guides, like, you know, beings in white or something like that, or light beings have like made it known to them that it's more of a like, you're better than this. Like, do you see all of the stuff that is happening to you? Like, none of it was important in the grand scheme of things. Like, there's so much more about your life than like getting cut off in traffic or, you know, any bad thing you've done like previously in your life. Like, you're so much more than this, and you're part of such a bigger story, which it's interesting. I mean, like it's very common in majority of religions, I would feel. Like anything having to do with, you know, like the higher being, you know, it's like you're monumentally more important to life than just these small problems that you're going through, you know. And I think that's part of why like the near-death experience is so interesting, because you have people who don't believe in any afterlife who are having these same experiences, that are like coming out of it saying like, I believed in nothing, I almost died, and I came back a changed person, you know. And they might not they might not be religious. They might not like, oh, well, I guess I'm a Christian, or oh, I guess I'm Islamic, or I guess I'm a Hindu or Buddhist or anything
or at least
like
they
that.
believe in a higher power.
But they believe that like there's so much more spiritually going on, and that there's more to life than just like what they've been presented with, like here on Earth, which I find very like fascinating, you know. And it's wow, like yeah, it's just crazy, dude. It's crazy. So we're coming to a close on these little bullet points, but you know, you have approaching a border or a decision by oneself to return to your body, often accompanied with a reluctance to return. So it's like you know, and I think that kind of goes into the
That sounds like Deadpool 2.
the unconditional love part. You know, the feeling of acceptance, the feeling of like being at peace and all that kind of stuff, where it's like, you know, do you want to go back? Like after feeling that, like, because obviously if it wasn't like a big part of the near-death experience, it wouldn't be mentioned like in the main points of like having an NDE, you know? So a lot of these people, they go through this, you know, they could have a really happy life. They could have kids, they could have a wife, they could have like all these friends and family and like people who love and care for them here on Earth. But it's like they go through a near-death experience and they're almost like left at a crossroads where it's like, well, do I even want to go back? Like I feel just so one with everything going on. Like, is it even like worth it? Even though they have so much to come back to, they still find a way to maybe want to just stay, you know,
stay dead
wherever they're
wherever
they're going,
their soul
you
is.
know, wherever they're gonna go. So it's interesting. You have suddenly finding oneself back inside one's body. So obviously, you know, if it wasn't a near-death experience, you wouldn't be coming back to your body. So obviously you got to experience coming back. And then a connection to the cultural beliefs held by the individual, which seems to dictate some of the phenomena experienced in NDE, but more so the effects the later interpretation is. So some of these people, you know, they experience religious figures that they know of. Some people claim like, oh, I saw Jesus, or I saw God, or I saw, you know, whoever or whatever they believe in. But that's not always the case. That's not always what it is. You know, some people, depending on, you know, what they believe in, yeah, that's kind of what they interpret. But for a majority of people, they really just experience some of these things. They're
Something
like, hey, I have
life-changing.
no idea, like, really what's going on. I don't know who these beings are, like, quote unquote spirit guides. Like, you know, if you have a guide helping you to like cross over, all that kind of
Like
stuff.
a bear.
A lot of people don't really.
Dude, I hope my spirit is a
I
bear.
really hope it's a bear, dude. What if it's like a pigeon?
Oh man, the entire woods, dude. If there was a way to accurately know what my spirit animal truly was, and it was a pigeon, I would rebrand the Woodsman.
You would
be
have
a
to be
wolf
a
and a
pigeon.
pigeon.
You would have to be the pigeon, bro.
It'd be a little wing clinking the glass.
But it's that one pigeon you constantly see walking into windows.
It's that one with the neck. It's the one with the neck that's like
the crooked neck pigeon. Just
where are your hosts?
How is that thing still alive?
it's like I've seen that man like all 15 years of my life so far, and he's still going. Like I don't understand. But going into that belief, actually, so like actually the next thing I have on our notes, you know, worldview, religious view, and all that, it does play into effect, but a person's worldview experience is brought into an NDE, but some of the universal elements and themes are there regardless of the beliefs of the individual that brings it in to the NDE. So like the near-death experience happens to everyone, and it's widespread across every religion and even atheism, which is interesting, especially for, you know, individuals who believe there is no life after
But that
death,
doesn't mean
you know?
that everyone will have one. It means that there's no background or bias that will make
no
you have it more than another.
Yeah, there's no bias as to like what would constitute as an NDE for someone.
Gotcha.
So it'd be like a generic
Exactly.
base.
Yeah.
Anyone can just have one.
Which I think would honestly, given a scientific, perspective, I feel like that would strengthen the case that there is indeed life after death, regardless of what we think it is. If people who have
potentially, not to play, devil's advocate. I don't know if that's the correct term for this case, but I could also see scientifically that meaning that we are all human at the end of the day, and our brains, though very different from one another's, they all have key functions to make them work. And so I could see that potentially just humans having certain neurons fire in certain ways could cause you to have one. And that's why it might not be religion based,
Well, yeah, I mean, like the pineal gland, when you die, releases a whole bunch of DMT, which, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but I know we've definitely discussed the fact that, like, there's like studies where people are trying to map the DMT realm, because you can smoke DMT, that's like a drug that you can actually, like, put yourself under.
Yeah.
Sounds wild, but I mean, like, people claim, there's a whole bunch of people who claim to see and witness the exact same things on a DMT trip. So it's like, is that maybe breaking a barrier to something? Like, is there like something to where, like, DMT, like, in your mind can possibly,
It could
unlock
be
something, which is very interesting. But I don't know. I mean, the thing that would turn me off to the idea that it's like, oh, it's all in your head, neurons firing, all that kind of stuff. Like, some people have been dead clinically for 30 minutes and come back from a near-death experience with these same things. Like, and I believe it's like seconds that your brain fires off a whole bunch of DMT.
Mm-hmm.
Seconds. And it's like, if you're clinically dead for 30 minutes, I'm gonna believe that, there's something more to it than just like neurons firing, like, in your synapses, like, but that's just me. But I mean, that's a bias. So, you never know, but it is very odd, right? It is very odd. So we also have a Kenneth Ring, who's a psychologist from San Francisco, that states that NDEs experienced following attempted suicides are statistically no more unpleasant than NDEs resulting from other situations, which I also find interesting, especially when you think of, like, the down, or like the negatives that any type of religion kind of puts on, suicides, like that suicide's a big no-no, like, in every major religion, like, widespread worldwide. It's like, oh, like, if you commit suicide, it's one of the biggest, I wouldn't say sins, but it's definitely a big no-no in, like, every sort of, like, religion. But those people are not experiencing anything more than anyone else is, which is,
you have to think of it this way: for someone to actually commit suicide, they're already in a very dark, negative place to begin with. So that kind of breaks that understanding, like, well, if you're dying and you have this positive mindset, you're gonna die in a heaven. You're gonna create a heaven because it's all in your head.
Yeah, like, you creating your own reality after death,
right?
Like
with
that
with that logic, for someone who's committing suicide, it should be a hell perspective. Yet that's not the case, at least in this study from Kenneth Ring. So.
Yep. That and that's exactly where I was gonna go with that. Is that, like, you would think if it was, like, all in your head, like you had stated, Joey, it would be like, your brain kind of, and it almost is like it coincides with, like, the religious figures that, like, you bring in to, like, your near-death experience. If you're religious in any way, it would bring in those things that you were taught, those things that like you were led to believe, like from childhood to like now, like whenever your near-death experience happens, you would be led to believe that it would bring in either those negative or positive effects, but majority of the people don't have those negative effects. And when it comes to a suicide, you would definitely believe, like Eric said, like if it's not positive, if you're in a bad headspace, you would assume that bad headspace would lead you into a bad NDE. But it sounds like that's really not the case, which is very odd, honestly. Like you would think it would be like definitely the other way around for sure.
That just means there's something more than just what our mind perceives.
Exactly, that there's actually something physical taking place on that spiritual realm of like being, or like that soul being. So a number of contemporary sources report that the incident of near-death experiences, and this is where we'll get into the percentages, they're stated as it follows. So 17% amongst critically ill patients, in 9 prospective studies from 4 different countries. So 17% of NDEs kind of happen like in those like instances. 10 to 20% of people who have come close to death. So really those almost like those near-death experiences of people who maybe like almost get in a car crash, don't exactly get into a car crash, all that kind of stuff, where their life flashes before their eyes, all that kind of that kind of thing. But as follows, it says in one series of NDEs, 22% occurred during general anesthesia. Yeah, sorry guys, I can't read again. I really hope we clip that one like I did the last one, because that was a good one. But in one series of NDEs, 22% occurred during general anesthesia. So that's scary in itself, dude. Like 22% of people going under. That's
a lot more than I actually expected, to be honest.
That's way more than I expected, but
that's almost a quarter, dude.
I'll still have it.
Like that's
if I'm going under surgery, pump me up. Like, dude.
Like that is terrifying, dude.
Well, they do make you sign those waivers though too.
Yeah.
When you do under surgery. So.
Yeah. I know I had to sign a waiver when I like.
Was it your wisdom teeth?
Nah. When I in high school for chat, I had a benign cancerous cyst in an area, and I had to go under for them to take it out. And
I wish we could do more details because that's such a funny story.
It's not funny. It was actually genuinely terrifying. I thought I was gonna die, dude.
I'm not saying the situation was funny. I'm saying like that story has come up so many times over the years, and we make jokes about it all the time now. The situation itself, no, I'm glad you got out of that, but it's like it's just.
It was terrifying, guys. It was terrifying. I didn't have an NDE, situation. But I definitely had a good sleep from that anesthesia. Let me tell you.
So that means you were like one of the what? 70, 80,
like 77%,
right?
78%. Yeah, 78%. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So in closing for this little segment on, I know we kind of like ran a long time with explaining all this, but I feel like this is like stuff like people I feel genuinely need to know about a near-death experience before we dive into some of these stories. But the Magnus Center quotes on their website: for a near-death experience to occur, one must have limited brain function, yet still have a sensory experience without full use of their physical senses. In the United States alone, now this is the statistic that I was like shocked. In the United States alone, about 9 million people have reported experiencing an NDE. 9 million.
I mean, hey, limited brain function, still have some sensory. Sounds a lot like me just having sleep apnea. That sounds a lot like what happened.
This number, I'm curious. This number, is this the highest out of everyone, or is this just?
Now, I will not lie, because I was looking up genuinely for more or less the United States. I didn't really look too far into like any other places, but like just here 9 million was staggering for the United States. Like, it was
United States #1 in
like
everything.
number one, even in death, buddy.
Yeah.
Even in death. But yeah, so wild. Scary, wild, terrifying a little bit, borderline terrifying.
I
But
still don't like that 22% for the
22% for anesthesia.
I've had at
anesthesia
least
is
4
wild.
surgeries in my life where I had to go under, and thankfully no issues.
So you're like 1 or 2 surgeries away from having an NDE, dude.
Don't say that.
I will gladly take 6 surgeries with anesthesia. I hope you realize those stats haven't changed a thing for me. If I ever like break my arm, put me down.
Take him to the back of the barn,
Yeah,
guys.
Sir, we don't need to put you under. We're just putting you back in place.
Just
Do it.
Put me under for just getting my like cavities filled,
Bro.
dude. Like
Dude.
like I'm terrified of the dentist, dude. Any work in my
Same.
mouth, you can just.
It's just
Any work in my mouth,
the
you
hum
could
of the
just-
drill that just
Yeah.
really gets it.
I'm all right, dude.
Not me. It's whatever that scraper is. The one where they're like,
Yeah, no.
Are
you're-
they jamming in your gums?
Yeah,
Oh, you're
dude.
bleeding. You don't floss enough.
yeah, doc, you stabbed my gums.
Well, let's get a little more lighthearted before we go into some like crazy like little stories about it. I mean, it was pretty bleak for
Really
this one.
bad
but, like,
timing to ask for lighthearted. We're about to have a real sad case of the bear facts.
man, dude. Talk about the diddler's revenge, am I right? And cue the bear facts.
Disclaimer. Some topics within this episode might not be suitable for young audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Bear Facts with the most unbearable news anchor around, Joey Rucker. And as funny as that bit was, I have some sad news. Today, we are talking about quite the real story, chat. If you haven't heard of this case yet, I'm honestly surprised and envious of you, because this story is horrifying when it comes down to the bare bones of it. Today we are talking about P. Diddy. And because I don't respect this man for everything that's been coming out about him, I'm going to be referring to him by his real name, Sean Combs. And that's how we're going to go about listing off the bear facts for this week for Sean Combs. Basically, if you haven't heard, Sean Combs was arrested and is facing 2 kinds of cases at the current moment. One of them is a criminal case from the government and several civil cases by involved parties. Combs was taken in for alleged criminal activity like sex trafficking, kidnapping, and forcing others to cover up his crimes. In 2023, his ex-girlfriend filed a lawsuit against him for orchestrating unethical sex work and forcing her to participate in them. I really should have put a, trigger warning at the beginning of this the bear facts, but I'm sure there was one in the beginning after I edited it. So, to continue on with basically what's been happening, though this lawsuit that was filed from his ex-girlfriend happened in 2023. This was settled in a single day by Combs. This was sort of the main turning point for the public and for the government officials to basically look more heavily into all of the secrecy and strange occurrences and talks and stories that have been kind of following Sean Combs this entire time. Many of these cases started to become very public, accusing Combs of and grooming, and that's not like the only weird thing about like that is horrific when it like comes down to the bare bones of the facts, but there's also strange like details with this case involving what the police found when they ended up raiding Sean Combs' house. The authorities eventually did raid his home, and they found things like firearms and ammunitions, specifically like AR-15s with the serial numbers removed, narcotics, and the big one that has been spreading around the internet like wildfire, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. You know, that fact is enough. So I don't always enjoy the bare facts chat. I don't know if you've ever gathered this, because I've talked about people dying, people getting assaulted. But listen, I'm glad he got arrested. So that's the end of bare facts. I hope you learned something, and let's get it back on track and get back to our regularly scheduled program. I didn't wink, I blinked.
So in 2001, a study was conducted by renowned cardiologist Pim van Lamel. A man who had been in a deep coma later told a nurse that he recognized her. He told her that he saw where she had placed his dentures during resuscitation efforts and described the cart where she placed them. To her surprise, they were precisely as he described it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little excerpt that we have from the Magnus Center. It's pretty wild. It definitely has some out of body experiences for sure. I couldn't imagine what that nurse had to have been feeling.
I feel for the nurse. It was her, right? Yeah, her. He told her, dude, I feel for her, because like that's got to be like one of the what are you what
like what do you mean like what, like I just couldn't imagine like trying to I guess resuscitate someone, or like trying to like do surgery on them, and they just come back and they're like, hey, yeah, my dentures, they're over there, and she's just like,
see, that doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean? like
is
what
that
do you
like
mean?
an out of body experience type of NDE?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just like bro's
He
guess
was
just
astral
floating above
projecting.
his. Yeah, he was astral projecting, and
He was doing the full Doctor Strange.
And he's just like, oh, very interesting.
Very
Like,
interesting. If you were looking for my dentures,
they were
they're
over there. Like, dude, yeah, I just couldn't imagine going through something. And that was like in 2001, so that was like 23 years ago.
I can't remember. Did we discuss like when NDEs started to become like known or talked about or described?
Well, they've been talked about pretty much like throughout history. It's just the term near-death experience that's been used since 95, because like Moody, he coined the term. So there was like no term for it besides like, yeah, I'm coming back with some weird things going on, so I have no idea. Like, you know, so it's just crazy, dude. It's just crazy. But because this episode is going to be so ungodly long, we're only going to do one more story. And hope you guys like it. We picked like probably the shortest stories out of this entire thing.
But it's a little dip. It's a little dip into what you can look forward to.
Dipping your toe in the possibilities.
For a potential part 2?
First part 2, The Woodsmen? That's crazy.
I'm surprised it wasn't aliens.
I am too, dude. I mean,
I'm shocked it wasn't aliens.
Dude, nah. If we're doing another alien episode that the public will never see, it's definitely just got to be like a very broad and specific like topic, like an actual story, like maybe like the Betty and Barney Hill abduction or something like that.
Yeah, that would be
like,
good. That would be good.
You know, because aliens are too broad of a subject to just try and capture in one episode. So
yeah,
you never know. You never know. But you're gonna read the next story.
Yes.
Let's dive in. Let's dive in and get a little spoopy.
One man who had an NDE as a child recalled the experience of meeting dead relatives. There were some presences there. There were some ladies. I didn't know them at the time. They were so loving and so wonderful. And I just didn't want to come back. I didn't see any pictures of them until I was an adult. But then I said, oh yeah, they were my great-grandmothers who had died years before I was born. So one thing I actually thought was pretty interesting about this story was it reminded me a lot of something you've told me before, and I believe Eric. I'm not sure if we've discussed it on the podcast before, but it was when you were a kid and you had a very similar like awakening moment to something. Did you? But you don't really count that as a near-death experience.
No. I will say though, like you said, awakening moment. It was definitely probably the first thing that ever happened to me where I believed, I believed that there was something else like beyond my comprehension, even as young as I was, because this probably took place around like probably kindergarten, maybe first grade, really young. So like 5, 6 years old.
Yeah. I'm assuming you were playing the PlayStation.
I was definitely playing the PS2, definitely playing Tony Hawk's Proving Ground.
Nice.
And let me tell you, still can't do an impossible, but I was really trying hard on that game.
I've never been good at those skate
You're
games.
like, I don't even know what impossible is, but
I think I have an idea, but I definitely would probably guess wrong.
It's like it's an impossible skate trick.
That's kind of what I figured.
No, but yeah, like I said, it was one of those experiences where even as a kid, beyond a doubt, I just knew that it was real, I mean, it's weird. Like,
do you want to like kind of give Chad a little brief?
Yeah. It's weird because like thinking about it now, I mean, for chat, we've literally gone over the same exact part, like probably like 3 or 4 times. But like now that I'm actually like really thinking about it, like I'm thinking about like the specifics, and it actually like kind of like gives me a little bit of a chill, even though it's not scary. Like it's not a scary experience. It's just one of those like I was young.
Yeah.
Like I was young when this happened, and it was one of those just mom like what, like, but surprisingly I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even tell my mom when it happened. I didn't like, yeah, it was just weird. But to go into it, like I said, I was playing the PS2, had a little game chair and everything, like one of those. I was one of those cool kids. I had the little folding game chair that had the speakers and everything on the sides, and I was sitting in that. I had my bed in the left side corner of me, and my TV was on a dresser with a whole bunch of all my clothes, all that kind of stuff. So it would sit on top of the dresser, and I remember I was playing Tony Hawk, just vibing, skating, living,
Vibing.
and all the power went out. And normally even as a kid, I feel like I was pretty rational when it came to all this stuff, because again, like I never had an experience like this, I don't think, before like this happened. So like to me, I was just like, oh, the power went out because it was during summer. Again, it's crazy. I like remember this like so vividly, but it was during summer, and I just remember the power would go out a lot in my house, and we'd have to like flip the breaker like outside, and then the power would come back on. We're all good.
That's crazy that you knew that at that age.
Dude, yeah, no, because it used to happen so much. Like I don't know. I think it was like if someone was using the microwave, and then if someone was like using the blow dryer, like in the bathroom or something, like anything that involved power in the bathroom and the microwave being used, the power would just go out.
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, oh, power went out, no big deal. But then like I look in the TV screen, because I have one of those box, the big old boxy, chonky TVs. And so you could see the literal like screen kind of fuzzy fading into black, like, because it wouldn't just turn off
TVs,
instantly.
dude.
Yeah, it wouldn't turn off instantly. It would just like, slow fade type of thing. But I just remember like looking in the TV like really close, like very intently, and there was someone sitting on my bed behind me. And I was like, what is that? Right? Like it was almost one of those things where it was like this isn't real. Like, and again, because I was so young, like it's so weird thinking about it now because I just remember my little kid mind. I was just very confused. Like I wasn't scared. It was just like very big like confusion state of mind. And I remember I turned back real fast and then nothing was there. And I looked back in the TV, nothing was there. And I was like, what
Dude.
the heck? But going into the story that we just read, my grandma moved in with us when I was 10. And obviously when someone moves in with you, they bring all of their, their prized, cherished possessions, all that kind of stuff. And she had a lot of like pictures that she had at her house. And I remember we put a lot of them up, and it was in the hallway right now. Oh, I didn't even mention like the weirdest thing about this situation. I ran out of the room after this happened because I was a little freaked out, but I wasn't like scared. I was just like, what the heck? And I walked out.
I would be scared.
My mom's watching TV in the living room with the lights on and everything.
Oh, because the power went out.
Yes, and that was my
Yeah.
first like sign where I was like, nah, like there ain't no way. But again, I was like so freaked out that I didn't even say anything. I just said like, oh, my power went out. Like that's weird, but never mentioned like the like person in the TV type of thing. That's what I should name the story. Like
The person in the TV.
the TV person or something. Like something cool. But so anyways, again, flash forward 10 years old. My grandma moves in with us. She's putting her pictures up and everything. And where my room is, I have a very small house, so is my room. If you go straight out, if you just move straight from the room, it's my mom's room. And like there's a little like hallway right there. And then if you turn left before you hit my mom's room, that's the living room, right? Very small house, like a little T shape, right? And I remember I obviously saw the pictures being put up in the house, no big deal. And I went to the bathroom and I walked out. And when you walk out of the bathroom, you walk into that T-shaped hallway where the two rooms are. And I was looking at the pictures, and I don't know why, like just casually, because I was a kid, so I didn't.
Were these pictures that your grandma put up when she moved in?
Yes,
or,
yes.
okay,
So these are pictures that were not there before, like at all.
That makes more
It
sense
wasn't
though,
until
why
she
you would
moved
look at
in.
them.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'm curious. Like, let me see like what's going on. And I used to go to my grandma's house every weekend, so it wasn't like I should have known. Like, it was one of those like I should have known that like those pictures were there, but for some reason I just was so curious that day. And I just stopped and I looked, and it was one of those like big picture frames where it holds, like 5 or 6 pictures or whatever. So I'm looking through all of them, and I see this like really old dated picture. It was definitely like a black and white picture, but because it was older, it was like faded into that weird like tannish. Like it wasn't white, it was like tan, like type of black and white type of grade of film. And it was this guy on a motorcycle with this whole uniform, and I about myself. Like I literally just was so, there's no way, because it was the same person I saw like in the TV like 4 or 5 years before then.
Dude.
And I ran over, I asked my grandma, like I tried to play it cool. I was like, hey, like, who's that person?
Who's that guy in the picture?
Who's the person in that picture? And then she told me like, oh yeah, that was my dad, and he used to be a motorcycle policeman for
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck? And it took me a while, honestly. Like it took me a really long time to like even like say anything, which is weird because again, like when we were talking about the cartoons episode and everything about like our cartoon heroes and all that, like I had mentioned, like I grew up watching the X-Files, I grew up watching, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, like all that stuff. Like I grew up like watching all of it.
Shameless plug, go watch the cartoon episode.
Yeah, go watch Cartoon Nostalgia. But yeah, it was just one of those where it took me a really long time to be like, Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
saw
weird,
that
like-
person. Like I saw
Yeah,
that person
it's-
in uniform, like in my room as a child. And then the weird part came up, and she was like, "Well, that's crazy because that was his room, and he bled to death in that room."
Yeah, that's the key ticket right there. That's the
Yeah.
one where, like, if I had heard it, I'd be like, well,
Take
we
me
need
to the back of the barn. I'm out.
Can you order a priest?
You know, it was just one of those, and it wasn't like a murder or anything. I say bled to death in the room, and people are probably like,
No,
"Oh my
no, no.
gosh, no way!"
Was he
But no,
killed? Yeah.
he had his blood wouldn't clot right.
Yeah.
So like he had very thin blood, and apparently one night they were at the dinner table. He had a nosebleed, and he excused himself from the room, and he went to the bedroom. And he laid down, and apparently it just never clotted, and he passed like in that room.
See,
And
but it's a crazy story because, like, you know, tying it back in, this story has to do with a person who, when he was a child, had a near-death experience where he had seen women, and when it wasn't until he was an adult where he realized that he knew those women, and it was his grandparents,
Yeah.
or his great-grandparents, yes, great-grandparents, and it's like
grandmothers.
great-grandmothers. And so it's just wild because
How's
it's
my great grandfather?
see, and that
So
isn't
that's
that weird.
crazy.
Like, it's kind of a weird, like, it's interesting because I almost wonder if maybe you did have a near-death experience. You just didn't know.
Maybe I got shocked to death by
Maybe
the
you had,
power
like-
going out or something.
Yeah, and you just didn't realize you were on the brink, you know?
I mean, I would say, oh yeah, maybe, but
How confident can you say your memory is of that day when you were, what, 5?
my memory is clear as day on that day.
All right.
Like that was one of the, like I said, that was one
I
of those
only
events
ask
that
'cause,
like
like-
shook me to the core.
No, that's fair. That's
like
fair.
that was one of, and I don't think it even shook me to the core until I realized who it was years later, where it just
But
triggered
didn't you
that.
say? Well, I guess it wouldn't be the same. I was gonna say, wasn't there a near-death experience type, where it's a shared, shared,
like a shared
but
death experience.
I guess
and,
maybe your grandma or mom were like choking on a chicken nugget or something,
And I
and
just
you were just like, I can see
flash
my dead
forward.
great grandfather.
No, I mean,
But who
I
knows?
could
No,
confidently, I could probably confidently say it. I don't think it was a near
Not
death
near-death.
thing, but I do find it odd that there's so much like commonalities
Yeah.
between like all of that. You know, there's so many. There's just so many things that coincide with near death experiences, with people seeing other people that, you know.
Well, you notice that a
are
lot
definitely-
with things related to. I think this would also somewhat go into the supernatural. You know,
No, yeah, and I think the
it's-
supernatural
it's-
coincides with everything.
it's
so-
there's a lot of things where, depending on what kind of supernatural or whatever, like, they all kind of correlate towards like similar backgrounds and people and like experiences, especially experiences, depending on what kind of supernatural it is.
No, yeah, I think it's all maybe like almost a spirit guide type of situation. Maybe there's like
Yeah.
some people who see like past relatives and all that kind of stuff. Like maybe those people are there to be the guides, you know. Maybe you don't like necessarily see them all the time, and they're there right when you need them. I know my grandma, she just had one during COVID era, where she clear as day, disembodied voice, heard her mom.
Really?
Like, yeah,
Hmm.
and I didn't even really know about it until like recently, maybe this last year,
Wow.
where she was at the back porch and she was walking down the stairs, and she heard her mom clear as day say, "You need to slow down, Kathleen."
Wow.
And she almost like tripped like on the stairs, and it was like one of those like, what the heck? Because my
Yeah.
grandma, you know, she's pretty skeptical. I would say, you know, like there's a lot of things that I have told her where she's like, "Oh, you're just freaking yourself out." But like it's weird to hear her say like I can't explain it. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from, but 100% I heard it. And there was no mistaking who it was. There was nothing. So I think like maybe like some people are hanging around. I think probably a lot of that has to do with the near-death experience, Maybe they're the spirit guides, maybe they're trying to guide you into, your way into the whatever's next, the afterlife. And, maybe they're also there to stop you from entering the afterlife, knowing it's not your time, knowing that, hey,
yeah, because that's another type, right? There's a reluctance to return.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
And it's like, hey, I know you don't want to go back, but, people need you, So
it's crazy. And like I said, I think these were some good, like, starter stories, some little appetizers, I would say.
Yeah. A little appetizer for the main course.
Yeah, if you guys enjoyed...
That y'all won't get till next week.
Next week, but that's kind of fun. I like making them wait. I'd like... making chat suffer.
You're such a tease. This will be our first part 2.
Yeah.
This will be our first part 2 episode, and it's literally the first episode of season 3. So
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it was fun. I hope you guys like our set. It's going to be like this for all of October.
It's pretty spooky. I got this guy just staring at me. You guys can't see him in frame, but I got a little skeleton just staring at my soul right now.
I love that. Like, mine fell, but I love that you have the thumbs up on the mic. I love that little addition.
A little thumbs up. Gotta let chat know.
But yeah, so if you guys did enjoy these little stories and the whole topic and vibe of the near-death experience, we're not done yet. And we're going to get further into it and discuss even more crazy stories, little longer stories, and discuss even more about this whole subject matter next week on the Woodsmen Podcast.
Well, yeah, and you also have to mention because it's going to be a part 2, and part 2 is going to dive into like a lot more stories, like... This is up to you guys now, chat.
Yes.
If you have any weird near-death experience stories that you would be comfortable sharing, if you guys are comfortable with, just letting us know what's going on,
we would love to.
We are very open, and we're very open to people talking
about it on this podcast.
So if you guys are willing, we would love to. Maybe even get you on the pod, you never know. Like maybe we could do like a little remote, little remote call. Yeah, if you guys reach out, we would love to have you. And
we've said it many times. If you contact us, question, comments, or concerns at thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com, we will answer.
We will 100%.
We will get right back to you. And if that's to maybe tell us some spoopy stories where you had a crazy NDE, then please reach out. We would love to talk about it with you.
And don't feel like you're gonna go into anything getting judged either, because I think that's a lot of why people don't share their stories. I think that's a lot of the reason why people are afraid to bring these kind of topics up, because they're afraid oh, well, they're just gonna think I'm crazy. Trust me.
We don't.
The stuff we've had happen in our lives, just recently, is far beyond normal.
The only way any one of you, chat, is ever going to make me think you're crazy is if you say something foolish, like an interdimensional Bigfoot or something.
Or if you believe in flat Earth,
or if you
believe in a globe, you weirdos.
Chicken parm.
That's foul. Don't disrespect chicken parm like that, dog.
No, so we do look forward to hearing from you. As I mentioned, thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com.
Yeah. And also, if you believe in interdimensional Bigfoot,
let us know.
And you've seen an interdimensional Bigfoot,
and I'll bully you on the next episode.
Don't listen to Joey. I promise you, I am willing to listen to you, because I want to know. I want to know if Bigfoot is interdimensional. So please, like Joey said, drop a like, comment, concern.
Rate us, please.
Please rate us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Almost said Apple Music.
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts, and especially YouTube. Basically, our viewers that we had in our last 2 episodes. Thank you guys. Keep listening. Keep watching. Keep listening to the Woodsmen, And we'll be back next week with part 2 of the near-death experience. But we also want to leave chat with one little question. Never mind.
Which is kind of the question we just asked them.
I was going to say, have you guys ever had a near-death experience? But I hope you guys tune in and send us your near-death experiences. So, yeah.
We've been your hosts, Joey Rucker.
And Brett Murphy. Later, Gators. The Woodsmen Podcast is actively reading and responding to everything and anything on Instagram and our email. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the show, or would like to possibly be on the show, you can email us at thewoodsmanpod@gmail.com. Make sure to keep up with all things Woodsman related on Instagram as well, at WoodsmanPod. Don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe to the Woodsmen Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, with video exclusively on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to follow our personal accounts at Strange Kids and Piemaster J on all platforms.
The Woodsman Podcast is co-produced by Brent Murphy and Joey Rucker.
Our technical producer and engineer is Eric Bessero at Elite Sound Studios, with additional engineering by Brent Murphy.
Video editing by Joey Rucker, and Blood, Sweat, and Tears by all of us.
Any additional content by the Woodsman Podcast may not be used without our permission. Copyright Cabin 13 Productions.
And remember, it could be worse. You could be dead. Hey, yabba da doo.
Gabagoosh. Yeah, I've been able to hear you crunch the entire time.
I'll delete it.
Yeah, I love it.
But by the way, you haven't switched cameras at all. Oh, it's over that.
Bloopers. Oh my god, I will not.
That one was good. That one was
That was a
crispy,
good
dog.
crunch.
When does this become ASMR?
Clap.
Oh yeah, this one, the end.
Story 2.
Story 2 and wrap up. Take one.
I just didn't want to go through the whole thing and be like, oh, yeah. Got him.
Because
Wait, do it again because I said okay when you literally started talking.
hey, I'm doing bear facts. Don't moan.
Welcome back to the Bear Fact.
Welcome back.
Dee!
Look out! It's the diddler. Welcome back. No, that's too. I just peeked. Story 2.
Say it again with the same enthusiasm, Joey.
It's still one take.
Yeah, one take.
You don't have to.
Welcome back to the bear facts. Oh, I was gonna do a bit.
I'm the Mario guy.
I'm the Mario guy.
Hey, yo, it's me. It's Chris Pratt.
It's me, Chris Pratt.
Welcome back to the Bear Facts with the most unbearable news anchor around, Joey Rucker. And welcome to...
I'm sorry, that one got me. I was not...